Excellent. Thanks, everyone. We're really excited to have this conversation. It is something that I know all of us are incredibly passionate about and very appropriate for here in Orlando. We're going to talk about the experience economy and what it is in just a second, but I want to give everyone just an opportunity to quickly introduce themselves, tell us who they are and what they do. Joyce, you want to get started?
My name is Joyce Arbusius. I'm one of the partners in the Imagination House. We are an entertainment production and creative development agency here in Orlando. We've been here since 1996. And we are probably 85% leisure industry focused, working with cruise ships, theme parks, resorts, casinos. That's the world we live in, vacation and play world.
And we're going to get Joyce to start saying the experience industry focus soon, but yeah.
We are experience industry focused.
Michael?
Good morning. My name is Michael Jungen. I have a foundation of 23 years experience working for the Disney company. At the end of that period, I, with others in the room, had the privilege of being one of the executive leads for the Next Generation Experience project. My particular contributions were to lead the teams that developed the Magic Band and the X-Connect IoT system that got integrated in the park for delivery of the My Disney experience. On the heels of that then, I went to Carnival Corporation and led their global experience and innovation team delivering the Ocean Medallion. Part of that, we got an opportunity to talk about sort of the same thing as Carnival introduced their plans at the 2017 CES show. And we actually had Joe Pine, who was the author of the experience economy, support us in that. Joe's a great lead. I'm sure he would love the fact that we're here talking today, and he was part of the Disney experience development and Carnival.
Hi, I'm Jason Ambler. I'm Vice President at Falcons Creative Group here in Orlando. We are an experience design company, and we do projects all over the world. We do a lot of projects here in Orlando as well, and Central Florida area. Theme parks, attractions, zoos, aquariums, you name it. If it's an experience, we're probably designing it. And we also develop all the digital media, the interactives, the AR, the VR, our own technologies, and we also have patented ride systems that we offer, and some patented interactive and technologies as well that we are part of our sales arm.
Excellent. So kind of the quick, and you could, there's the book, as Michael mentioned, from Joseph Pine. There's also a great HBR article that kind of summarizes it for those that don't want to read the full book. But to kind of encapsulate, I think, what the experience economy is really driving home about is this idea that if you think about it, we started from a commodity economy to a product-based economy to then a service-based economy, and now we're headed into this experience-driven economy. And so you can look at simple things. I think one of the examples he talks about is baking a cake, and then at one point for a birthday, at one point it was you got your flour and your eggs, right, your commodities, you made the cake yourself. Then you'd go and in the product-based economy, you bought your Betty Crocker box. In the service-based economy, you paid Publix to make the cake for you. And now in the experience economy, as someone with a 5-year-old, we don't even worry about baking a cake because it's part of this entire package that you're paying hundreds of dollars for a birthday party, right? And that's the experience economy. You can look at it with Starbucks, you can look at it with Uber, you can look at it on almost any industry and see the shape that the experience economy is taking place. But one of the things that stuck out to me when I first read it was he mentions multiple times both Walt Disney World as kind of the initial creator of this idea, and then also Orlando as being kind of the owner potentially of the experience economy. So kind of for the group, what is it about the cruise line industry, the theme park industry, that has gravitated them so much towards experiences?
We just talked about this.
Yeah, so I think it's a young technology. The last forum talked about automated vehicles, self-driving cars, and flying vehicles, and that there's an incubation period. And I think what's wonderful about campuses like Walt Disney World and cruise ships is that the disciplines to deliver the experience are controlled and influenced by the same organization, the same leadership. So it's easier to get your arms around influencing the delivery of the end result guest experience in a holistic way. And I think that's really a point of where we are right now with the IoT platforms and with technology, that will advance to a point that there can be a distribution of the disciplines that are necessary to influence on the whole, so that cities or other campuses that have multiple partners in the operationalization and delivery of the experience do it effectively as well. But I think it's because these organizations have the control that they're able to really be the first leaders in this.
I think looking at it from a marketing standpoint and the association that people have with brands and how those associations are created through the experience itself, and the cruise lines are a great example. So if you and your family sail to the Bahamas for a week, you are basically on a ship in a room with X number of beds and X number of dining rooms. And what will make it unique and what will make it something that creates any sort of brand loyalty is what you experienced on that ship. And that could be everything from the music that they chose, to the color palette that they chose, to the entertainment that they gave you, to how your children were treated and what experiences they were given in their spaces. So we're spending more and more time looking at every single micro experience as part of the greater whole and looking at that as what creates the brand association and therefore the brand loyalty. Why do you pick Royal Caribbean or Carnival or Disney? It's because of all of the experiences that you had on board, not necessarily because of the size of the cabin or whether you were served chicken or fish.
So, and I don't want to downplay, obviously, the difficulty
Yes.
in doing that, both in cruise lines and in theme parks. But kind of as Michael and you have both pointed out, there's obviously the idea of having this controlled, enclosed environment. We talk about downloading apps, right? And if somebody's going to a theme park or on a cruise line, you send them an email that says, download the app for the cruise ship, you're going to have a high number of people that are going to download that app. Jason, your team does a lot of work, I've seen lately based on your Instagram feed, with retail and creating these retail experiences. How do you balance when you don't have that closed environment? What are the things that you're looking at? How do you try to create that same feel of experiences?
Yeah, I think the experiences are really translating across all sectors, whether it be retail, restaurants now are bringing in more and more experiences for people. I think as there are more options and people are more discretionary with where they want to spend their entertainment dollars, you have to entice them and bring them into this world. When it comes to retail-tainment is kind of the new term that's been coined. You're combining merchandise, which has always been a very high margin industry, with something that also has a lot of draw and appeal for people to get out of their houses. Really now you're competing with the Amazons and the online ordering systems, and in order to draw people out, you have to offer them something different and unique and create an experience for them. So,
is there an example that you guys have done recently in that world that you can share?
Well, we just announced we have a partnership with Care Bears that we're doing retail experiences, as well as we've done retail for Marvel, Cartoon Network, and various brands out there that are meant to really draw people out and create a unique experience. For instance, we created a retail experience called the Marvel Vault. And that really appealed to the collectors and the people that wanted a little bit higher end, signature items from the Marvel Universe.
Yeah, I think, kind of going even back to the book, and I hadn't thought about this again with the 5-year-old, but he talks about Build-A-Bear Workshop, right?
Yes.
This idea of, you don't go there for the teddy bear, you're going there because it's an experience. And so, we all live and play in the tech world. Talk a little bit for us about how does technology enable these experiences, and what are the technologies that you're seeing that have worked really well to help enable these experiences?
Well, I have to say that in this whole discipline, my primary driver for myself and the team has always been Arthur C. Clarke's phrase that any technology sufficiently advanced is indistinguishable from magic. And what does that mean to the team? It's not about the technology. Yes, the technology is the tool that gets us there. The technology is really important to elevate the experience and to have something repeatable and dependable. But if the technology is showing itself out in front of the experience, then it's upstaged the very thing that's the most important. And I think, with my partners here, being involved, especially with Joyce, in actually delivering the actual performance. If the stage tech is out in front of the actors, that's bad. And so I think that's the challenge, is it takes a lot of work, like with the Magic Band and the Medallion, in those particular experiences, to do it in a way that the guest isn't distracted by thinking about what do I do next, and I think that's the real challenge.
Yeah, being intuitive with the technology is key. It can't overshine the experience in any way, but we are being tasked with integrating the technology that people are already expecting. And it can be as simple as your phone. So, parents are saying to us, I want my kids off their phones. I want more analog experiences. I want us to bond as a family, but I want to make sure I get a photo op out of it that I can post on Instagram. So you have to keep that in mind as you're developing this, that the technology that is already part of our everyday lives has to be included in some way, even while people are claiming they don't want it. So to Michael's point, it has to be sort of magically just behind the scenes in a way that just is seamless for the user.
How did you balance that, Michael, from a Magic Band perspective? I mean, if you ask anyone, people talk about it, right? So it is about the technology. How is that different?
Well, I think, as Jim McVie can attest, one of the first assurances to the Disney leadership is that we were going to approach that in a multidisciplinary way, that it wasn't just a tech project, that it required operations and entertainment and retail and food and beverage and every discipline that was necessary to ensure that the guest experience in the end was the thing that would shine, was a part of the development. So, there were a lot of great dialogues, and with the Magic Band, we ended up with this phrase for the team called the Manju, because the technology teams that were developing the radios and the antennas and the IE team who was developing how that was going to be encapsulated in a product, they wanted it bigger, but it couldn't be bigger. It had to fit in something that could be wearable by a guest, that a guest would love, that wasn't awkward, that would not feel icky on a hot day in Florida. And so that constrained the teams, and I think that constraint with a multidisciplinary team and having everybody involved in helping the outcome be something that maybe some members of the team were really challenged by, but in the end it ended up being something that resounded with guests.
Coming from, we've been in the business 20 years, traditionally as a service-driven company, a design company. Now, in the last really 5 years, shifting into developing technology, developing software now is our next frontier. And, one of the things that you have to look at is the design of the product and how it's going to interface. That it's intuitive. It has to be intuitive. You have to be able to understand it as soon as you engage with it. But it also does have to be hidden, to your point. And it's not about the technology driving the experience. It's the experience, what you're trying to do or tell or say, driving the technology. And a lot of times, more and more now, we're looking at how can people interact or change their environment. And so that's getting into a new realm of not just using technology passively to tell stories, but actually putting people in the middle of those stories and creating new technologies. So we've now brought in a lot of developers and coders that are working on these types of pieces every day, and we're now going from a service industry now into having patents and having these products that we can offer to different groups because we are developing it, as a third party versus internal effort.
Joyce, how has your company shifted and changed since you started towards technology?
Well, more and more we're being asked to incorporate technology, but as a responsible vendor, I think one of the things that we have to do is make sure that every one of our clients has a plan B, because sometimes technology fails. So we have to make sure that in developing an experience, we go and they're going to do this and they're going to swipe in and this is going to happen and it's going to recognize them and there's RFID and if none of that works, here's how you still deliver the experience in a way that you didn't end up with a giant guest dissatisfier. So we have to make sure that as we're developing these concepts, we're always thinking, is there a way for the human element to step in? Whether it's an actor, whether it's a guest service desk manager, whether it's someone that when or if something fails along in the grand umbrella of the guest experience, how are we going to step in and save that moment for the guest? And ultimately, that'll stay with them longer. So we can't, people will get a little nervous about technology is what I'm finding. They're a little, oh, this feels a little complicated. We have to just assure them, this is the future, this is where we want to go, and your people can still create an awesome guest experience which supports your brand.
What does that change management or training or conversations look like with frontline staff, right? Because frontline staff, whether it's in retail or in the cruise line industry or in theme parks, A lot of them have been there for a while. They've been doing things in a certain way. How do you get people to be okay with this beyond just saying, well, if it doesn't work, you can do this? Because what I've seen is oftentimes if you say, if it doesn't work, here's your analog way, they immediately will jump back to the analog way without ever trying the digital way. How do you handle that?
Well, we've been really working on showing the benefit to people. They have to drink the Kool-Aid, first of all, right? They have to believe that what you're going to deliver is a better guest experience than they were delivering before. So once that happens and the guests are excited about it and engaged and plugged in, then they realize that that plan B really is just a Band-Aid, because what they want to deliver is the experience that's been promised.
And I think that's the difficulty within any human group. Henry Ford experienced that, and he expressed it as, if you ask people what they want in the change, they'll say they want a faster horse, because they can't even imagine what this other thing is. And especially within communities, within organizations, if the people who are going to be especially delivering the new experience don't have an appreciation for how they play a role in that, then as Tom Kelly said in the book 10 Faces of Innovation, the organization will reject it, and they will be the reason why it's part of the larger majority of innovations that fail. So I think, in my experience, first having learned it with the team at Disney and NGE, and taking a swipe at that, and then most recently with the Global Experience Innovation team at Carnival, where we had pilots that actually were a part of the innovation team. They didn't have a responsibility to deliver, just like the pilot of a ship coming into Port Canaveral doesn't have a responsibility to drive the ship. The pilot that gets on the ship knows the port, and he or she advises the crew in the ship, here's how you navigate this port. So similarly, bringing on a food and beverage person, an entertainment person, a frontline ops person into the development team and making them pilots to help advise and navigate those decisions in how to make it holistic and real. And then by ensuring that those pilots are well respected with the rest of the organization, then it helps to increase that organizational buy-in so that it's not one of those new transformations that gets rejected.
I think it's important to make the distinction. There's really two types of technology integrations and experiences. You have that consumer-facing, the guest-facing technology that they may engage or interact with. Then you also have that operational side, the ride systems that a lot of these attractions are developing. In many cases, and I know, we're obviously developing a lot of technologies and projects around the world that we know that the technology exists, and we're just packaging it maybe in a new way. Or if it is something new, we're doing a preliminary development phase and doing some R&D to validate that it's going to work. So we're already hedging some of that risk before we even get into the full-on development, where now we're getting into the nitty-gritty of how does it feel, how does it touch. But we're out there looking at different technology partners. How can we pull this group in, use their SDK or their API to tap into what we're doing here and create some kind of partnership, because if we're selling 1,000 of these, they're also going to get a piece of that. And a good example is we did a project in Busch Gardens in Williamsburg, Virginia, where we used Vives, VR headsets, on a simulator attraction, something that no one's ever done before. And up to that point, they had done roller coasters with very low capacity, maybe 40 to 80 people an hour. We were pushing 1,000 people an hour through a VR simulator experience, and the way we did that was we actually developed our own kind of two-phase headset where they could put on the head mount before they got on the ride, and then once they got in the ride, they would just snap it right in. And so that created a much quicker fit out and got the turnaround to where a normal attraction would be putting on your seatbelt. But there's a lot of different ways to develop technology and to hedge it, because we're involved very early on in the concept and design. We're thinking about that very early on, and what's out there and what we may have been developing and what our R&D teams may have been cooking up in the lab. But that's something that we kind of are already very confident with before we even go into activating it.
I'm curious, and we can call people out if we want, but are there specific examples that you can think of recently that you've come across where the technology has taken away from the experience? We don't have to talk about the QR codes that didn't work when you checked in this morning, but.
I think a lot of those are short-lived, honestly. I think that they kind of become a blip in some ways that if they don't work, they typically fall off pretty quickly. I don't know. You guys would say.
I think that will be more and more the case, that as we go forward in time, consumers are now expecting things to be seamless. And so there's a direct correlation between what they've experienced in some other venue or some other place, and it becomes a dissatisfier. So, brand loyalty, as we've talked, and, intent to return is becoming more and more driven by what happens within the experience. We all just saw, just last week, the cruise ship, Norwegian cruise ship that had the uprising on board because the expectations of the guests were not met to the degree that they know they should have met. And so I think, that was sad for that brand and that ship, and certainly no one wants that to happen. But I think consumers now have a heightened expectation about how things should work, and and that's going to get more and more as time goes on.
One of the things, again, back in the book, and I love, is he talks about the stage, and I think it's why he credits Disney with the idea of everyone's a cast member, right? Because the idea is that the entire experience with the guests is a stage. Talk to us a little bit about how this stage has shifted and grown, right? I mean, it used to be you'd walk in the park, that was the beginning of the stage, and you left and that was the end. Kind of how has that changed in the industries you guys work with?
Well, I mean, I think the Walt Disney example is perfect because everything about that experience meant that you weren't wearing a uniform, you were wearing a costume. You were a cast member, that was your guest. All of those little shifts that happened were immersive, right? So when you go to the Magic Kingdom, as soon as you cross under the train station, you have entered a new space and everything about that experience is controlled. I think that that's being used in places you wouldn't even consider. We have small local theaters talking about infusing scent into the room when people come in. You have restaurants, not just what we know think of as themed restaurants. We're not just talking about, animatronics in the middle of a restaurant, but everything from the texture of the seat that you sat in and what that meant to you. Did it feel rustic and rough because that's the brand of the restaurant? Like, there are so many layers that even those of us that are creating the experiences are not thinking of. It's coming at us fast and furious. But what is not acceptable anymore that I'm finding is a traditional packaging and delivering of a product. It's not sustainable. So if, we keep talking about, like, if you want to sell pina coladas, you better get a pool and some music and some suntan lotion smell, and you better get all of those things in, because not a lot of people are making pina coladas in their house on a Sunday afternoon. Right? All of a sudden, you go on vacation, and you're like, I have to have 10 pina coladas, even though you never really drink them. Well, it's all about the entire experience. So if every product that you hold in your hand now, you think, what is the experience? It's a fun game to play. Like Campbell's chicken noodle soup. Yeah. Right? What's everything that's connected with that now? And how it made me feel, and why am I brand loyal to that versus another brand? Like, all of those things are what we're layering in, and we're using the elements. For me, as someone with a theater and entertainment background, those are the elements that we're layering in combination with other specialists to do the overall umbrella.
I think experiences as a whole are successful when they're ecosystems. They have to adapt and react to what's going on every day. As an operator and an owner of, an experience-driven venue, it's your responsibility to really respond and react and adapt to what you're seeing in your environment. You can build a beautiful restaurant, but if your service is bad, you're gonna fail. Or if your food is bad, you're gonna fail. Or if you don't have enough people in the door, or you're over capacity, you could, have issues. So it's about a matter of finding that right balance, constantly adapting and letting it be a living, breathing, and evolving experience. And I think, obviously Walt Disney World has been around, a long time, and they've constantly reinvented themselves and come up with new, additive experiences that don't take away from what the core experience is, but constantly adapt and try to react to that. So that's also on the responsibility of the owner, the operator, the staff, the cast members, to help be a part of that, and even live shows. What lands with the audience? Oh, that line that I did really stuck with people, or I went out and interacted in this take. And even the live shows evolve over time, as far as what the audience kind of prefers and reacts to, and you have to be open to that, because you can't build these things in a closed box and expect them to be successful over an extended period of time.
When does that experience start for your clients? So how has that evolved and changed?
Yeah, I think Bob Iger, Disney, talks about making Disney company the most trusted brand in the world. And with that larger company being involved in so many segments that impact the guest's life, the consumer now has expectations about know me, trust me, deliver to me personally, that become a responsibility for a brand, for a product, for an experience delivery. And I think there's no end. Which is kind of interesting, because we're sitting here talking about the experience economy. Joe, in the book, has this ramp that he talks about, yesterday's experience, superlative experiences, tomorrow's commodity. So it's an escalator that always keeps going up but slipping back. And so a company that's committed, or a community or a city that's committed to continually engaging their consumers, guests, citizens in a way that draws them in and keeps their attention, their loyalty, their commitment, has to be also committed to continually addressing those other dimensions of the guest, citizen, community member engagement, and resolving the rough spots, because the consumer is going to demand that, and they will shift their loyalty to the degree that they feel they're being let down.
And the experiences are definitely starting earlier and earlier. I was sharing just before we started, I have a client right now who says, there's a 2-hour sort of drive window to get to my location, and I want to be able to control what people are listening to on the way here. What are they reading on the way here? What are they listening to? So now it was the booking and the experience. Now what's in between? What are we providing them that's of value? And in a micro world, what are we providing to each layer of the family? What does dad want versus what does mom want versus what does the 8-year-old want in just that 2-hour window? So micro experiences inside of the whole that just continue to layer onto the brand loyalty, and folks associating that. I'm going to say it, I'm a Disney person, I'm a Universal person. We hear that all the time in Central Florida. It's unique to us a little bit, but folks will say, I have a season pass to fill in the blank. And what made them choose that is a lot due to the experiences that they had while at those locations and how it spoke to them personally.
Shifting gears a little bit here, where Joyce and Jason, your companies have been very successful in working with a lot of these major players in this experience industry. What advice would you have for small to medium-sized businesses as they're getting started, or maybe trying to figure out how to connect with these larger players because they have a solution to help with the experience?
Well, I've been with Falcons Creative Group for 7 years now. When I started, there were 12 employees. We fit our whole team meeting in a conference room. Now we're approaching 70, so we broke the 50 mark from being a small-sized business to a mid-sized business about 3 years ago. And that's all been grown organically through project-based work. We're not betting on the come. So I would say do the most with the people you have. You always hear the stories about these really successful companies that started out with the CEO being the packager, distributor, marketer, everything for the product. And you really do have to try and leverage your team as much as possible in those early days, and try and find the right Renaissance resources out there that may be able to wear multiple hats while still being able to do their core duties. And have people that take ownership in your company and really respect the importance of that and what people mean to your organization, and don't take it for granted, or don't keep on, it's unfortunate, but they say our industry is very competitive. It really is, and we treat it that way, and I think it was a Netflix business model that says, we're a professional sports team. That's how we're going to treat it, right? And it's no hard feelings, but we're going to hire or bring in the very best people at our salary cap that we have that are going to meet the demands of what we need to do as an organization. And I think that model has let us grow slowly and steadily over the last few years and really has proved successful for us.
Well, we are much smaller. We have about a dozen people in our office. And I would say that we try very much to become an extension of our client's team. And in order to do that successfully, if there was any bit of advice I would give is to really, really understand the brand of your client. I think the reason that I have been fortunate enough to work with brands who quite honestly compete against each other. I can have a meeting with Royal Caribbean today and Disney tomorrow and Norwegian Cruise Line the next day is because we understand that their brands are very unique and the products that we will create for them have to be very unique. The kiss of death is when you present something to a client that they feel like you're recycling because maybe you tried to pitch it to the other guy and it didn't quite work. It feels disloyal and it's hard for them to embrace you. So being really, really clear on the brand, being willing to become an extension of however much or however little they need at that moment, I think has been why we've been lucky enough to stay in partnership with these folks for many years.
Michael, from your standpoint, when you were at Disney or at Carnival, what were you looking for when companies were coming and pitching and soliciting? What were the attributes that you were looking for that would have taken a risk on a small company or a medium-sized company?
Yeah, I think true to what I said before, number one was, is this potential additional partner going to complement the rest of the partners? Because in a fast-paced, highly volatile environment, if there's conflict or friction between partners, it's not efficient. So complementary partners that are willing to work in a mutually success-oriented environment. Matter of fact, that was the first sentence in the description of the statement of work for every partner, was that they would collaborate together with Carnival and all the other partners. And so I think collaboration is absolutely essential, and the willingness of that new organization to add to the mix. And I think the other thing is the spirit of innovation and the spirit of willingness to come in and not predict, this is what we've done in the past and this is what we're going to do for you now, but to have the confidence of the strengths of what they're bringing to the table, but the willingness to come into it open-eyed and learn from the other partners, learn from the hiring organization about the vision, and to be engaged in making that successful.
Excellent. I started with how Joseph Pines in the book mentions Orlando kind of being arguably and potentially the experience economy capital of the world. Why is it that, especially from a technology standpoint, Orlando isn't known globally for the experience, technology, all these great? We're known for the brands, but we're not necessarily known for all. I know you all know that we've got 2 partners here up on stage, but there are hundreds of partners here in Central Florida that support these attraction companies in the hospitality industry. Why aren't we known for that more?
Maybe it goes a little bit to any technology sufficiently advanced is indistinguishable from the magic, and the magic kind of overshadows. Orlando does such a great job being recognized as the magic, even our team, that overshadows the fact that it takes a lot of work to make that magic happen. Because certainly the talent is here, and certainly, they're successful because we are recognized for the magic.
What would it have looked like for either of you to try to grow your teams not in Orlando?
I don't think I would have taken the same path. Certainly, I feel like I stumbled onto what people in the rest of the country call a niche industry, which is funny since we all know that it's not. But I don't think that I would have sought out the business that I'm in because I don't know that I would have known it existed. I didn't even know I didn't know. So, it was the idea that these magical spaces have behind-the-scenes support wouldn't have occurred to me. And so I think that Orlando is uniquely positioned. For one thing, it's a great place to cut your teeth. Even you have the experts in entertainment all in this amazing little, community big community now, and you can learn an awful lot if you're willing to just get in there. There are innovations in technology happening here that aren't happening anywhere else. Now, we may not think of it that way because it happens to be at a theme park, but they're still way ahead of the curve of other things that are going on. So for me, I don't know that I would have ended up doing this.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of small, mid-sized businesses in Central Florida area that really support, the big theme parks, but also export out really all over the globe. The entertainment that we do here, and a lot of our work we do in China, the Middle East. They consider Orlando the theme park capital of the world. That's their term, not mine. And but it is.
We've actually
coined it.
Okay.
Okay.
It's trademarked.
Trademarked.
Actually,
Okay, so it is. So it is trademarked. Okay. And I think that there is a lot of infrastructure here, and I can tell you every other week I'm meeting with another vendor, another collaborator that we're doing on a project, whether that be an architect, an AV company, a software company that's on the project. And most recently we were grateful to be a part of the Halo Outpost Discovery, which is based on the Halo video game franchise that toured all over the country. And we did a whole panel actually on Made in Orlando because the Scenic Company was here, we were here, the app developer was in Orlando, the designers were all here. So it was really a project made in Orlando but then shipped out literally across the country.
And here's what's funny. I was the marketing voice on the commercial for Halo Outpost Discovery.
So we were all in on it.
So, I mean, yeah, a lot of small companies get pulled in, and I'd say what's important to all of us as a whole is to lift each other up. So if we have the opportunity to hire local, we have certainly enough talented people here. It just continues to bring the business back to Central Florida.
And hopefully we'll continue to get more and more known for the technology side and the experience side of what happens behind the scenes.
Well, there's no... it's very clear to me that, IAPA, if you guys haven't heard of that organization, they're the International Association of Amusement Parks and Attractions. They've been around over 100 years now, even before Disney World, right? But they are the largest organization really in theme parks and the amusement park entertainment industry. And they moved their headquarters to Orlando, recently relocated. And, they put on the biggest convention, which is in November. I think it's, Orange County Convention Center is one of the largest convention centers, and this is one of the largest conventions that's there. It spills out into the parking lot, and people from all over the world come to Orlando every single year to do that convention. And it has also increased that idea that Orlando is the epicenter for a lot of these types of experiences.
Yep. Excellent. Well, thank you all. I'm really excited about the panel we had today. It was great. I know we're going to continue this conversation. So thanks.